Typhera's full kit, all Epiphanies have been revealed. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's Josh. We're going to be tackling every single thing that we know now about Typhera, the, well, downsides of the character, but we're also going to do a little cooking on this channel. I know, you just call us Gordon Ramsay.
You're gonna die, aren't you?
If you end up liking what you see here, make sure you hit that sub button. Let me know what you're doing with Typhera down below. Let's get right into it. Now, Typhera's main shtick is going to be based around creating different, well, creations, or in her case, they're called archetype cards. So the different archetype cards that you can create with Typhera are going to be these ones right here. We have the circle, the triangle, and the square, as we will call them. Now, the circle one is the one that's drawing a lot of attention to this character because it is a card that generates and gives you an AP with a small amount of healing. The triangle version is going to give you a little bit of a shield, but also is the other thing that she's super cool at, which is buffing up big hitting one-time shot characters. So as you can see here, the archetype triangle increases the damage of the first hit of the next attack card by 30% to a max of 300%. So you can only stack this up to 10 times. It is a very nice buff, but two things to keep in mind. It is the first hit, so you can't combo this with someone like Malin who's hitting multiple times, and it's only the next attack card. So this is going to be useful for characters like Haru, Kairon. Obviously, Hugh from 9 is going to be nice here as well. And then the last one here is going to be the square archetype card, which is a little bit of a healing, and it will draw you an archetype card as well, which is actually pretty important because one of the main downsides that we'll see as we go through this character's kit is the fact that she has the ability to really blow out your deck with just a bunch of these archetype cards. She doesn't have a lot of generic card draw. She might have a little bit of ways to get these out of your deck, and it's sort of a dilution problem when it comes to consistency of her being a powerful supportive character. Now, the first skill we're going to talk about is going to be Quantum Seed down here. As you can see, Quantum Seed is going to have the base Epiphany version here, which is going to be heal 180% and then create 3 archetype cards in the draw pile and then draw one of them. So it's going to make 3 different random ones. It could do one of each. It could do 3 squares. It could do 3 triangles. It could do 3 circles. It could do 2 and 1. It's random with this upgrade. It's going to heal you, and it's going to draw you one of them and leave 2 of them in your deck. As you can see, a little bit of a deck dilution problem with that one. The one that I like the most, though, and we'll cook with this one probably, is going to be this second version, which is a 0-cost skill. And it has a smaller heal at 120%. We don't care, but you get to select an archetype card of your choice, okay? And then you will put one, and it will create one in your hand, and it will also put another one in your draw pile. So this is a selection one. So you're going to be able to pick the AP if you want the extra AP. You're going to be able to pick the attack card damage bonus if you want that as well, or if you have had the ability to put a bunch of other archetype cards in your deck via other means, you're actually able to make the square archetype and then immediately have one in your hand, use that one, draw one of them out of your deck. Maybe you'll draw the other square, which you can then draw another one out of there. A lot of the times, though, you're gonna be picking either the triangle or the circle for either extra AP or stacking buffs up for your big hitting character. The third middle one here draws you 1 card. You have to predict what archetype card will be created. It will then create the archetype card, and if you predict it correctly, the other ones will be put into your draw pile. Now, this one is a big debate. It's going to draw you a card by default, which is cool, but then you basically have a 33.33% shot of choosing either circle, triangle, or square correctly. If you guess it correctly, you will get, well, guess what? That one in your hand, okay? And then it'll put the other 2 in your draw pile. So a little bit of draw in her deck here, but also like max dilution and just super RNG, which is not a thing that we want. We want a consistent game plan when we're playing card games. and Cesian's no exception, so I definitely hate that card. The fourth one here for Quantum Seed creates 3 archetype cards in the draw pile. You will draw one of them, and then it will activate the retain effect 2 times on 1 random card of this unit in your hand. Now, none of these cards have retain effects on them, as we can see. She does have a couple other ones. This one, though, it's going to cost you 1 to do all of this kind of hullabaloo thing. I'm not the biggest fan of it, especially when you have something as powerful as the second version of Quantum Seed. The 4th or the 5th version of Quantum Seed here turns it into an upgrade. It is a unique upgrade. When you cast it for 1 AP, it's going to create an archetype card. And then when your AP reaches 0, you'll create one of each archetype card in hand and draw a pile, and it can proc 1 time per turn. So if you're able to get yourself down to 0 AP, it will then give you one of each of them, one of them giving you an AP back, and then putting some of the other ones in the draw pile as well. So you're going to be able to get an AP back, get the damage boost card, and then have the square archetype in your hand, and then each of them will be in your deck, and then which you can then, I guess, cast the square card to hope to get one of the other circles or triangles or other square cards out of your deck to then cast another triangle or circle. You see how dumb this character can kind of be when you can just do something as simple as cook with this awesome second epiphany of Quantum Seed. Now, another card for her is going to be Form Convergence, and this is going to be a core card in her deck as well. And I think this is something that you're going to be focusing on using one of these epiphanies with the Quantum Seed epiphany that we talked about before. Don't worry, we're going to break it down and sort of give you some fake decks as we wrap up this video. But the first version of the epiphany of Form Convergence costs 1 AP. It has Retain on it, which means that you can hold it in your hand until it's an opportune time to cast it, which is a plus here. It has draw 3 archetype cards, and it doubles a random effect of those cards for 1 turn. Now keep this in mind. You're going to see this a couple of times when we talk about doubling random effects of her archetype cards. You'll look at it and be like, well, they have one. This one makes an AP, this one draws you an archetype card, and this one buffs your tech card damage. What's random about it? They have 2, right? They have the heal or shield effect in conjunction with the other effect that it does. So when you're casting Form Convergence, or you see any of these double a random effect or remove an effect, which is something we'll talk about in a second here, it can be either the heal on like Archetype Circle, it can double the heal, or it can double the AP generation. It can double the shield on the triangle, or it can double the attack card boost. It can double the heal on the square version, or it can allow you to draw 2 archetype cards. So the first version of Form Convergence is pretty decent, and it's mainly good as it's a repeatable way for you to make sure you draw archetype cards out of your deck to keep your deck from overloading itself with all of these different archetype cards that you're creating. And the fact that it has Retain is a big deal because it allows you to just have it in your hand and use it on subsequent turns to make sure that you're always filtering these cards out of your deck. Now we have the second epiphany of Form Convergence, which still has Retain, and it draws 4 archetype cards, and then you can select an exhaust, 1 exhaust card in your hand as well. Now the upside of this one is it's going to get even more archetype cards out of your draw pile, and then it will also be an exhaust outlet. So if you're using a team that wants to exhaust cards out of your hand, maybe you're using like Exhaust 9, maybe you're using Kayron or something, that can be a benefit for you if you don't want to mess around with the double some random effects of the cards that I draw. Although I think that one's pretty decent because you're still drawing 3 archetype cards with the Epiphany one, and it's going to double all of them. So if you're putting a bunch of AP things in your deck, you know, you're drawing 3, you have a pretty decent shot of at least doubling one of those AP generators. Whereas the second version is just there to like remove some exhaust cards out here and get some benefit for exhausting cards, or just maybe keeping your hand from getting too cramped, which isn't that big of a deal in my opinion, considering all of these archetype cards just cost 0 anyway. The third epiphany is Form Convergence. This one also has Retain. It is a 0 cost skill, and it will change all of your archetype cards in hand into a different archetype card. On top of that, it has the Retain effect to draw 1 archetype card. Now, there is going to be a little bit of a possible use for this one with someone like Orlia, the ability for you to cast this card and change all of your archetype cards into different random ones, I don't think is the main draw of this card, because a lot of the times what you're going to be doing is trying to focus on creating the ones you want anyway, so you don't want to change the ones you're creating that you want into random ones. What it does have though is that Retain effect. So if you are able to proc Retain effects, we talked about a previous card that could do that, or you could pair her up with someone like Orlia who can continuously proc Retain effects. You can just take one simple Form Convergence that's sitting in your hand and turn it into a absolute drawing machine for your archetype cards, and you can utilize this third epiphany as something that allows you to just never have excess bloat in your deck ever. Think about having 1 or 2 of these in your hand. You create like 3, 4, 5, 6 different archetype cards in your deck / hand. You're gonna cast some of those. You'll use like Growth Acceleration, proc this 2 times, draw 2 more cards. Use Will of Light. That's gonna be another retain effect, proc at least 1 of them to draw another card. If you have multiple form convergence and your Will of Lighting with your Orlia, you're gonna be drawing archetype cards for each form convergence in your hand, and you can generate a ton of AP this way. And that's going to be a secondary team that you can think about building with this character. Now we have the 4th Epiphany of Form Convergence, which still has Retain. It selects and exhausts 3 exhaust cards from all cards, and you draw one exhaust card for each exhausted card. Now this one is interesting. It was almost like super awesome as a way to filter out exhaust cards into card draw, but remember, it only draws other exhaust cards. It's not select and exhaust 3 exhaust cards in your hand and then draw cards equal to the amount of cards exhausted. It's exhaust 3 exhaust cards from your hand and draw that many exhaust cards. So this can be a form of ways to get her different archetype cards out of your deck. But in addition to that, it also is a way for you to draw certain like season 2 exhaust neutral cards, right? The spore generators, all that stuff. You could utilize this form of form convergence for those styles of decks as well. Although I think in general, while it's more niche, it has a use. You probably, unless you're specifically building for that weird niche archetype, using it as sort of almost a pseudo tutor, right? To get multiple different exhaust cards out of your deck in addition to your different archetype cards. Probably something you'll pass up on, but you know, you can probably brew with that. And then the final Epiphany for Form Convergence still is Retain, draws 1 archetype card, and then it repeats until the same card is drawn consecutively, max 6 times. So what this means is you're going to be repeatedly drawing all of the archetype cards out of your deck until you match 2 of the same. So if you have 2 circles, 2 triangles, 2 squares in your deck, it's going to draw 1, right? So say it draws the circle first, then it's going to be like, all right, repeat this. If it draws the circle a second time, you're done. But if you go circle, triangle, square, circle, triangle, square, you're going to be able to draw 6 cards, all of your archetype cards out of your deck for 1 mana. However, it is extremely RNG. So when I'm looking at these 5, if I'm looking for a solid baseline version of just how much value can I get for the AP I'm spending, the first one is just right up there. Draw 3 archetype cards. You're gonna double some of them. That's kind of cool. It's kind of not cool, but it's really there to make sure that you can draw the cards out of your deck. And if one of those gets their AP or damage bonus or draw doubled, fine. If none of them get it, also fine. It's okay. So those are the form convergence epiphanies, and I think you might be having a couple of ideas floating around in your head when it comes to brewing with this character. Sadly though, I will say that this is potentially where the good news for this character ends. Now we have creation and destruction. All right, creation and destruction. The first epiphany here, they're all attack cards except for one of them is an upgrade. The first one here, 216 defense-based damage, 120% shield, 120% heal. Harmonization doubles all effects. So this means harmonization is if you cast this card and the amount of AP you have as you cast it is equal to its cost, activate the harmonization effect. That means for this card in particular, if you have just 1 AP left, you go down to 0, you cast creation and destruction. Cool. The damage bonus is going to double. The shield's going to double. The heal is going to double. We don't care. All right, let me tell you we don't care about that. All right, moving on to number 2. All right, we don't care. She's not a DPS, right? We're not doing crazy stuff like that. And if I'm spending the last AP on my support buffer to heal and do a little bit of damage, I think we might have been, I think our deck might be bad. I think our entire team might be bad because typically I'm using my final couple AP to do damage with my damage dealer. Moving on to the second one. 5 cost creation destruction attack card, 660% mod, defense-based damage. FC, when a card is exhausted, decrease the cost of this card by 1 for 1 turn. If you wanted to go for like a big meme gimmick damage dealing version of Typhera or something, where you have her in a bunch of an exhaust lineup, right? You want to make her do some damage instead of really support your team. You want to get this card in your way, right? You want to dilute your deck a little bit by having a damage dealing card in your supports setup. This is something that's pretty easy to do. And also, like, she can exhaust a bunch of her own cards. A lot of the times, this will be like a 1 or 0 cost, 660% defense-based damage mod. You say, that's good, Josh. Maybe I just don't want that card in my deck. I think my damage dealer is probably doing way more damage than the couple thousand this is going to hit for. I'm going to be doing tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of damage with my damage dealer. Who cares about an extra 1 to 2K, 3K, 4K? I don't. That's for sure. The second version of creation, or the third one, has retain cost 2. 192% defense-based damage, smaller shield, smaller heal. Retain increases the effects of this card by 100% until activated, max 4 times. Maybe in a retain deck, I'm not enthused with that. Remember, she is a support character. We're looking for AP generation, card draw, damage buffing. I'm not particularly excited to have my support character doing damage for 2 AP. Can't even reduce this one. I do not care. All right, I do not care. We have the fourth version of Creation Destruction, which is an upgrade. It's unique. When your AP is 0, create 1 Creation and Destruction and decrease the cost of those cards by 1 and apply exhaust. So you get the base version of Creation and Destruction, which is just like a slightly weaker version of the first Epiphany. It's got a lower damage mod, lower heal, lower shield. But if you use the upgrade version of Creation Destruction, every single time you're ending your turn, you have 0 AP, you're gonna get a Creation Destruction to just cast at the end. And remember, it's still gonna have that harmonization, right? And harmonization for 0 at 0 AP means it will always activate. So it's nice, a little sort of chaos, mode. If you're in there, free sort of benefit you'll be able to do. It's going to be a very nice chaos run card, but trying to build and brew around this into your deck, probably not worth it. The fifth one here, Creation Destruction, another 5 cost attack card, 180% defense-based damage for each cost of this card. When a card is exhausted, randomly change the cost of the card from 1 to 9. So, I mean, I don't know if there's a bigger meme or joke in the entire world. I don't know why you would run this Creation and Destruction of Epiphany 5 over Epiphany 2 when you can potentially make a 660 mod for 0 versus a 180 times 9 for 9 mana. Not particularly caring about that. At the end of the day, though, I think this card for most decks is something you will just straight up remove and never really want to use. I think it's a card that does have a lot of use case scenarios depending on the Epiphanies that you get inside of your chaos runs, especially Epiphany 4 with Creation Destruction. But in general, I think this card is kind of doo-doo. I think it's pretty bad, and I'm not the biggest fan of it. Now we have a little bit of a hit, a little bit of a miss with dual creation here. Let's get right through these ones. The first Epiphany for dual creation is going to be an upgrade card. It is unique as well, so you're not duplicating this. And it has initiation, which is great as it's part of your game plan. Hopefully, potentially. What does it do though? Now, when 2 archetype cards are created, create 1 identical card in the discard pile. So this goes right into deck bloat for you. If you put it in the discard pile, you're gonna have to draw it at a later time. If you can't get it out of there right away, the next time you shuffle your deck, you could just randomly draw into one of the circle, triangle, or square archetype cards. Is it gonna be something that you want to do all the time? No, it's deck inconsistency. You want these things to draw cards. You want to create them, draw them, use them, get them out of the way, and then do it all again next turn. That's really what you want to do. It's like think of like creating, if you had the ability to create shadow daggers from Tressa, end your turn and they don't ephemeral, and then you can randomly just draw like random shadow daggers or just all these other things that just sort of get in the way. You don't really like that. And doing that with the Epiphany 1, I'm not the biggest fan of. Now, Epiphany 2, dual creation upgrade, unique initiation. When 3 archetype cards are created, create an identical card to that in hand and then apply a retain to that. So I like this version a lot better than the one that puts it in the discard pile. You do have to create 3 archetype cards instead of 2, but you immediately gain access to it. And you can use it if you want to. You can hold it in your hand. Like say you make a square archetype down here and you're like, well, I made a bunch and I drew a bunch of stuff out of my deck. And then next turn, I might be able to make some more. Well, you'll start with the square archetype card in your hand because it has retain, right? And so you can create some new ones. They'll go into the draw pile, and the square archetypes that you made off of dual creation the previous turn, you can immediately just use to draw your brand new creations out of your deck immediately. So it's a pretty neat card. You do make like slightly less archetype cards than the Epiphany one because you need to make or create a card, excuse me, every time you use and create 3 archetype cards versus Epiphany ones every time you create 2 archetype cards. So, you know, you get like 1 less for every 6 archetype cards you created. The first one would give you 3, the second one gives you 2, but you gain access to them immediately, and it gives the retained benefit. We have the third version of dual creation, unique in initiation. Now, when archetype square is activated, create 1 different archetype card in the discard pile. I'm not the biggest fan of this. A lot of the time when we're deck brewing, we're going to be trying to focus on creating circles and triangles, squares as an afterthought. I don't want an entire card in my deck based around, man, every time I make a square, I get a different card in my discard pile. Not a big fan of that. The fourth one, skill dual creation. Now this is going to be a unique skill. It's not an upgrade, but it costs 1 AP, creates 1 of each archetype card, and then creates 1 of the next archetype card exhausted. So you cast this card, you'll get a circle, a triangle, and a square. And then the next archetype card you use, you will get another version of that. So even though it costs 1 AP here, it's kind of basically free if you so decide to, because you'll cast it for 1, you'll get a circle, triangle, and a square. You could immediately use the circle again, get that AP back, and because that was the archetype card you used next, it will generate another circle. So dual creation at the end of the day has a little bit of flexibility to it on this 4th Epiphany, because like we just talked about, you can make it free and then use the square and the triangle that it created basically to do other stuff and also gain an AP off of the extra circle. You can create all 3 of them, double buff with the triangle, draw 1 thing, right, with the square, and then get the AP back with the circle, or you can just make all 3, get your 1 AP back with your circle, get a little bit of buff, and have the square be the first one that you casted. So you will square, draw a card out of your deck. It'll make a new square, draw another archetype card out of your deck. So it's a pretty decent card, all things considered, as a skill, but it is in fact a skill. And then we have the Epiphany 5 for dual creation here. Still unique, still as initiation. We like to see that. And this one is the Gamblers dual creation. So when an archetype card is moved to hand, duplicate that card and remove a random effect. And this can trigger 5 times per turn. So what you do with this, remember we talked about doubling random effects. This is the remove one we alluded to earlier. So for the circle, for example, if you have archetype circle in your deck and you move it to your hand, either by drawing it or what have you, the game will have a 50-50 shot of removing the heal off of it or removing the AP off of it. Remember, it's not removing it off of the base version. It's going to duplicate it, and then the new duplicated version, it's going to remove one of the 2 things. There's an upside and downside to this Epiphany. Obviously, it's RNG as to whether or not you get the correct effect removed. But I think there is going to be a place for this in some like heavy exhaust teams because, well, every time you draw an archetype card for the first 5, you generate an archetype card. If you are a character or a team that cares about how many times you exhaust a card per turn, this is going to be 5 extra exhausts, 5 extra cards played per turn. It also going to be 5 extra cards generated. And the math on it isn't the worst thing ever. For example, if we brew together a deck where all we do is create archetype circles, right? We make 5 archetype circles a turn. We put 5 of them in our deck, 5 in our hand. We make 5 AP from the ones in our hand. We draw the 5 out of the deck, right? Well, guess what? 50% shot. You're going to get like on average 2.5 of them, 2.5 of the ones that duplicate are also going to give you AP as well. So you can generate a crap ton of AP with the dual creation card. The downside of this though, right? We just talked about the average, right? Okay, we move 5 things to our hand. We can double those effects. We could also just use the second Epiphany of this card, right? If we are generating 9 archetype cards a turn, 6 even. If we're just generating 6 archetype cards a turn, right? With the second Epiphany of dual creation, we're guaranteed to duplicate that card, identical version of it, and it won't have any of its effects removed. So if we make 6 circles a turn with the second Epiphany, we're guaranteed to get 2 more circles. And we just talked about, hey man, if we're running the averages here, 2.5. Right? So you can high roll with the 5th Epiphany. You can also low roll it and get just a bunch of random heals and garbage and stuff like that. You can get the secondary effects though, even if the good effects that you care about are removed, like you generate 5 additional archetype zeros and all of them get the AP effect removed off of that. Sure, you'll have 5 extra cards that heal you for 60%. At the end of the day, I don't know outside of exhaust focused decks if Epiphany 5 is the one you're going to want to go for, but I think 2 is definitely something to think about. And there's one more card, her ultimate card, that we definitely need to touch on because, well, you know, it might change your mind on dual creation. And then we have the final card, her ultimate card, her card Event Horizon. It is unique. You cannot duplicate this card, and it has the new ability of Form Upgrade on it. Now, if you watch the live stream, if this is how it's going to work, this is how it was said it was going to work on the live stream itself. Form Upgrade occurs when you use an archetype card while Event Horizon is in your hand. You cannot use your archetype cards and then get the form upgrades and then draw into Event Horizon later. But what Event Horizon in the form upgrade does is each time the form upgrade is triggered, one of these 3 effects will be buffed up again. So what it does, the base version at 0 out of 3, it gives you 1 AP, it draws 1, and it increases the damage of the first hit of the next attack card by 40%. So you'll get one of these upgraded each time form upgrade is triggered. So you could luck out, right, and get AP 3 times. And this card will cost 2, give you 4 AP, draw you 1 card, buff the damage of the next hit of the next attack card by 40%. You can get a mix of them. So it's 2 AP, draw 2, buff up a little bit, 1 AP, draw 1, buff up a lot. The downside to Event Horizon is that it has to be in your hand though. So this is one additional layer of combating deck dilution, card draw, having everything line up in the same way for you to get the maximum benefit from this card. If this card had Retain on it, I'd be a lot more excited for it. It's definitely not a card that you take out or anything, but it is her payoff card. You just have to have it in your hand as you're doing all of the stuff that you want to be doing with Typhera. It is a good card. It is RNG. Sometimes you're going to generate more AP than you need. Sometimes you might draw more cards than you need. Sometimes you're just going to want to get all of the attack card damage bonus increases, and it's just not going to hit it at all. Sometimes it's going to hit all of the attack card damage increases when you really need to generate more AP and draw more cards. So there's not really a lot of ways for us to consistently make sure that Event Horizon is doing what you want it to do, in addition to the fact that you need to have it in your hand before you start doing all of the different stuff with Typhera. So it's a good card. It's just not like always going to do what you want it to do. And sometimes, you know, if it's the bottom card in your deck, it's not going to do anything at all that you really want it to do. If it's the bottom card in your deck, you're paying 2 AP, you'll get 1 AP back. You'll draw a card, but it's the last card in your deck, so yay. And then you'll get like 1 attack card damage bonus, 40%. For 2 AP, I guess 1 AP, it's kind of whatever. Even if you get super unlucky though, at the end of the day, it is still 2 AP, get 1 back, draw 1 card, buff up by 40%. It's fine, and it just can go up from there, but don't read this card and be like, man, I'm always going to be getting 160% attack card damage bonus, or man, I'm drawing 4 cards, this is crazy, or man, I'm spending 2 AP, drawing a card, getting 4 AP back, in buffing my stuff. You're not going to know exactly what this card is going to give you when it's in your deck. So if we're brewing with this character, what is our focus? Now, our focus here is making sure that we can reduce the RNG to basically 0 and do the very important things that this character wants to do, which is the archetype circle as well as the archetype triangle cards, whether it's generated AP or buffing up the attack card damage of our big hitters. That is the main focal point for what we're trying to do here. So keep that in mind. These are the very important cards that we're trying to focus our deck around. When it comes to awesome cards that we're definitely not going to put in our deck, the Creation and Destruction, all of these Epiphanies, I think they might have some use inside of Chaos runs, but at the end of the day, I don't want this card in my deck, and this card definitely is just getting removed. We're not using that card whatsoever. The linchpin of this strategy is going to be this version of Quantum Seed. Now, this is the select an archetype card of your choice and then create one in hand and then also make another one in your draw pile. This is going to allow you to basically pick up the two most important things that you want to do. If you want to generate AP that turn, or when you cast the Quantum Seed, you can generate AP first. If you don't need the AP anymore, you can generate the triangle and make sure you do bonus damage that way. At the end of the day, in addition to focusing on those two, this version of Quantum Seed as well also combats the RNG, because not only can you pick which one you want at all times, if you've used previous Quantum Seeds to put some circles, some triangles in your deck and you need to get them out of your deck, you can also choose for one of your Quantum Seeds to create the square version of Quantum Seed archetype and get these circles and triangles, right, that you've created previously out of your deck. So this Quantum Seed is the linchpin of the deck, and this is a card that you're definitely going to be duplicating at least 2 times. Now, I think you're going to duplicate this at least 2 times, and I also think that this is going to be a linchpin of you putting like Divine Draw a card on this bad boy as well. If you can get Divine Draw a card on your 0-cost Quantum Seed, that's going to be great. I don't know if it's going to create the card in the draw pile and then draw with the Divine, or if it's going to draw with the Divine first and then create an archetype in the draw pile. Either way, it doesn't really matter too much, because you're going to have other ways through other Quantum Seeds, or like we talked about with other cards, to draw those cards out of your deck. And that is going to come in the form of one of these 2 versions of Form Convergence. Now, Form Convergence, you have these 2 Epiphanies, and they do 2 totally different things, but they do them pretty well, all things said and done. So we have this version of Form Convergence here that is got the retain, and it draws 3 archetype cards out of your deck, and then it can randomly double those effects. You also have this form of Form Convergence, which is draw 4 archetype cards and then select and exhaust 1 exhaust card in your hand. It's not a you may, you have to do it. Now, which of these 2 is going to be best? That depends on what we're doing with this deck. Now, we have 3 Quantum Seeds at the minimum, which means that if we're popping off, we have Divine Draw on our 3 Quantum Seeds. Well, it's going to create those archetypes, whatever ones we choose, the circles or the triangles most of the time in the deck. And those are going to be the 3 ways that we have to create our archetypes that turn. If we have Form Convergence, that means we can use one of the AP that we generated off of our Quantum Seeds to feed into this one Form Convergence to then draw those 3 other generated archetypes out of the deck and into our hand. And then on top of that, you're going to have the random effect to double, right? Whether it's going to be AP or the heal or the damage boost on it. It's not really there for the doubling effect. That's not why it's the best thing there. It's there because it's a very easy way to make sure that you can draw the cards you're creating out of the deck so you don't dilute your deck. And we're equalizing things quite nicely with this. We're making 3 archetypes. We're drawing those 3 out. What do we do with our last duplication though when it comes to Typhera? Now you have a choice to make here. One of the things that you can do is actually duplicate Form Convergence. You might say, Josh, why do you want to do that? And this is strictly for a consistency reason, right? Because this card has retain on it. So for the first turn, it's going to be a little bit RNG, right? You're going to be casting your 3 Quantum Seeds. You're going to be putting 3 things into your deck. Hopefully you have the ability to use Form Convergence right away and draw them out. But if you want to make sure you're always able to do that, having 2 Form Convergences will not only increase the odds of you drawing a Form Convergence in the first place to get your archetypes out of your deck and into your hand, but what it also allows you to do is as you're cycling through, right, your Divine Quantum Seeds, you're drawing cards, you cast a Form Convergence, you draw the other ones, you do some cool stuff. The extra Form Convergence, even though it can't do anything that turn, has retain and it will sit in your hand. So the next turn that you take, you don't necessarily need to draw into a Form Convergence because it's already in your hand. So you have the consistency 100% of just, I can cast my Quantum Seeds and Form Convergence is sitting there, one of the 2 in my hand every single turn to grab out the duplicated archetypes and put them in my hand. The other thing that you can do though is you can use this version of form Convergence here, which is the draw 4 archetype cards and select and exhaust 1 exhaust card in your hand. Now, why would you want to use this one over the draw 3? Well, if you use this version, form Convergence, you can actually go ahead and just duplicate Quantum Seed again, use all of the available dupes on it, 2 boss dupes and then a rare event dupe, and have 4 of this Quantum Seed, all with Divine Draw, which is going to make it pretty expensive, right? That's 20, 40, 60, 80, and then 3 dupes is an additional 40. So that's going to cost you whopping, well, 120 points out of your FMP, leaving 60 left. But what this does do is you're going to have the full Nelson of 4 Quantum Seeds, all with Divine Draw card on them. And as you're working your way through your deck, hopefully you can find a form Convergence that will draw up to maximum of the 4 different archetypes you created with your Quantum Seeds that turn and put them into your hand. The downside is you might draw some of the archetypes on the way there, in which case you're not super happy about that, and it isn't really drawing 4 cards because you already drew 1, maybe 2 out of your deck through the Divine Draw ability on the Quantum Seed. But it is a way to know that if you have this form of form Convergence in your hand, you will 100% of the time be able to get all 4 of your archetype creations out of your deck and into your hand every turn. Now, the last thing you have to decide is which version of dual creation are you going to want to use with this, because with this version of the deck, you have the ability to generate 4 different Quantum Seeds every turn. 4 and the 5 are both good for different reasons in this setup, because dual creation 4 is going to create 1 of each archetype card and then create 1 of the next archetype card that is exhausted. So what this dual creation will do, it's going to make a circle, a triangle, as well as a square. So it's going to make all 3 of them on the 4th version of this Epiphany. It's going to make all 3 of these for you, and you will be able to duplicate whatever one that you desire, right? So you're going to have 4 Quantum Seeds to make creations. You can pick between circles and triangles there, and you'll add, 4 of them into your deck, 4 of them into your hand, gain a bunch of AP, but you need to get those 4 out of your deck. Then you have dual creation here as well, which is going to add 1 of each into your hand. So it's going to add you another circle and another triangle, which is pretty cool. And we have the 1 form Convergence that draws 3. Like we just said, well, guess what, guys? We have an extra one in our deck. Well, this dual creation Epiphany 4 is going to give you a square, and it will be the last card that you generated from your Quantum Seeds that you can pull out of your deck with the 4th Epiphany of dual creation. So it really makes this version of form Convergence pretty strong. You get the double random effects on it. You have the ability still with 4 Quantum Seeds in your deck in the 4th Epiphany of dual creation. Get them all out of your deck. I think that this is going to be one of the best 2 different Epiphanies that you can gain access to. It is a skill. It is unique, so you cannot duplicate it, but it generates all 3 of them for 1 mana. And you're going to get that mana back because you generate a circle. If you choose to use that circle first, it will generate another circle. You'll be up in mana. If you just choose to use the triangle first, you still get your mana back because you have a circle in your hand. The triangle will be and double up the attack card bonus. If you need to get multiple different creations, archetype cards out of your deck because you don't have form Convergence yet, you're thinking it's at the bottom of your deck, you can cast dual creation Epiphany number 4, use the square first, draw whatever you created before with some of your Quantum Seeds, whether they be circles or triangles, draw those out of the deck, make that extra AP, get the deck dilution gone, get some damage bonus on top of it. So the 4th version of dual creation is pretty great, and I think it's probably the best one from a consistency standpoint. However, if you want to forego the extra little bit of consistency you get from the 4th Epiphany of dual creation, you can go with the 5th Epiphany of dual creation over here, which is the unique initiation one, which is when an archetype card is moved to hand, duplicate that card and remove a random effect on it. So with 4 Quantum Seeds, you'll be able to put 4 creations in your deck. And if you're able to pull all 4 of them to your hand that turn, well, that's 4 different things you're pulling to your hand. It's going to remove either the heal or the AP, or it's going to remove the shield or the attack damage bonus. Obviously, we want it to remove the heal and the shield instead, but hey, averages are averages. It's basically going to give you 2 extra creations. But from a consistency standpoint, I think I would rather have this version of dual creation in my deck as well. So we want Divine Draw on Quantum Seed. Here's our friends that we're making here. Form Convergence, dual creation. And then last but not least, we are obviously keeping in the ultimate card in Event Horizon right there. And this would be 20, 40, 60, 80 plus the third dupe is another 40. So 24, 60, 80, 120. I think this is going to be the go-to build for her if you're using her for consistency reasons. And it kind of mainly attempts to solve all of the problems that she has with card and deck consistency. But this is the version of the deck that I would aim for because it reduces, at least as much as I can think of, a lot of the consistency issues by giving you the ability to not only choose what buffs, what archetypes you're generating, but also give you avenues and outs to make sure you're not over flooding your discard pile and your draw pile with a bunch of archetype cards that you're forced to draw on accident in the following turns, which can really just disrupt your tempo, disrupt your game plan, and just kind of make Typhera a bad character. And it still leaves you a couple of spots in room FMP wise for extra divines or blessings or buffs on the armor and skill sets that we have from the Coliseum matches inside of chaos mode right now, or even a couple of neutral cards if you so desire there. And you can even fit in like a 50 point monster card in that deck in one buff from the Coliseum. So let me know what you think about this down there. I'm gonna have a blast editing this, I'm sure. And well, show some love and I'll catch you guys in the next one.